Now, here's your host of Small Business Talk, John Cruz.
All right, welcome back to the show, guys. This is another episode of Small Business Talk here on Business 1110 AM KTEK. And this is where we discuss the topics that inspire entrepreneurs from thought to action. I'm your host, John Cruz, and as always, I welcome your questions and your comments. Probably sitting in traffic right now with nothing else to do but to listen to us. And so we want to make certain that we inform you on some business topics that can help you in your small business immediately. Now, we had a phenomenal event today. All right, now let's get down to it. We have a guy who's become a staple and a part of the information that we dispense here on Small Business Talk. We have our good doctor, Dr. Raymond Youngblood Jr. here in the studio, and he is the CEO of a company called Consor Inc. And Consor is a international gold mining operation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about not so much gold and gold mining as we've talked about in the past, but what it takes to run an international company. So I know that so many small business owners all have the thought process that, hey, one day I'd like to take my business or take my product on a global level. And all that, although that's something that's definitely doable, it is quite an undertaking, and there are certain things that you have to manage. There are certain things that you have to be constantly aware of, and we're going to talk about some of those things that have helped Dr. Youngblood and Consor become leaders in what they do. Now, I want to say welcome to the show, Dr. Youngblood.
Thank you, John.
All right. Well, let's get to the point of the size, I guess. We'll start there, the size of Consor. Now, tell me the countries in which Consor operates mines in globally.
Okay. Our key countries are Ghana, Liberia, Sudan, Colombia. Those are our key countries. And we have some small things going on in the U.S., and mainly in South Carolina, and also Uganda. Okay, and we have a fabrication company that help us with all these pieces of equipment that we have in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, are you telling me that there is gold in South Carolina?
There's gold in South Carolina.
Really? Nobody ever mentioned that before.
That's actually the first known discovery of gold was in North Carolina, which if you look at the Charlotte University, their sports team, their mascot is the 49ers. So
really?
Yes. Downtown Charlotte was once producing mine.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know that. And usually when we think about gold being produced, you always talk about California and the miners of 1849. But I guess it had to be found a little bit of everywhere.
Yes. One of the first places was North Carolina. As a matter of fact, they're getting ready to start a mining operation there now in the Boot Hills.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, now, as far as Consor is concerned, what type of corporation is Consor? Is it a Guyanese corporation, or is it domiciled in South America?
It's mainly domiciled in Africa.
Okay.
Okay, where our key mines are. So Ghana would be known as our key main location.
Okay.
Okay. I hate to use the word headquarters because every country we have our own headquarters per se, but Ghana is the main office.
Okay, and now let's talk about some of the problems that you've encountered running a international corporation.
Okay,
and I know that one of the things that you sent me through email that I just never really thought about is the language barrier, and that you said that more than 22 languages are spoken throughout your organization.
Yes. Yes.
And so now, do you speak all 22 of these languages?
No. If you can count slang in Louisiana, country boy talk, then I'll speak 3 languages. But French, Spanish, Catalan, Chi, Fanti, Swahili, all these languages.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have to almost employ people who don't have any other function other than to make certain that everybody can communicate with one another.
The key language for everybody is English.
Okay.
That's our key language. Everybody speaks some form of English. What is the British taught
And so
English?
do I, by the way. I speak some form of it.
Okay.
But go right ahead.
So mainly English is the starting point for everybody.
Okay.
But if you're going to operate in some of these places, you have to have key staff members who are able to maneuver you, and the language is the first way to do that.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because even in Ghana, there are some places where they speak what is called an Ashanti tree.
Okay.
And Ashanti tree is the main language. Okay. So, but if you're in and around the North doesn't speak that primary language. So you have to have someone in the North who can speak the language of the North. If you're in the Western region, you have Fanti and all these different languages. So, but everybody goes back to tree or English for Ghana. And that is,
but that changes once you move across, say, to Sudan or...
Oh, yes, Arabic. The Sudan is primarily a Muslim country, so the Arabic culture, then they speak different dialects there.
Okay.
So you have to have someone there who can also communicate for you.
Now, you know, it's believed by some people in other parts of the world that Americans are barbaric in terms of that we have no couth, as it were. And I know that you have to be mindful of several cultures and even subcultures inside the same country.
Yes.
Now, who gives you that information so that you know that, hey, don't do this because it means this in this country, and then if you cross the river, don't do that because it means that. So, so how do you navigate that?
Me, I was lucky. Where I went to school, my university, there were so many languages. Park University, I think 100 plus different people from different parts of the world. Okay. That was the first lesson for me. The main thing is common sense. That's the second most important thing. The third thing I think that catches everybody is you will see a woman. She looks exotic. She looks different than the women from where you're from. You want that woman, or you give each other the eye, and you have to be very mindful that every culture don't allow you just to walk up and start talking
and
to a woman.
Speaking to a lady.
Yes. So little things like that. But primarily, you should probably all of us, if you want to move to Guyana or Peru, you probably know somebody from these places, and they are your key to teaching you how to move into these places. Because what we tend to do is we do what I call it become Americanized, which means we go to a place and we expect everybody to behave like we do.
Certainly.
And it doesn't happen that way. And as a matter of fact, you get a very quick lesson as to how fast you don't behave that way or how you speak to people. So many times coming through the airport, I've seen people, especially Americans, arrested at the airport for their behavior.
Really?
Yes. So it's a very big thing to find somebody who understands the culture and the language, and they help you navigate.
Well, you know, and that does make sense. If you were going to move a portion of your business to a certain area, to me, it stands to reason that you would find someone there who can adjust and ease you into that culture so that you're not offending the same people that you would either have to employ or you would have to depend on to do your business. Now, have you ever offended someone?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
So what happens when you've offended someone? And I'm certain that it's never on purpose.
Most of the time, it's never on purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Let me speak from this standpoint too. Sometimes you have to realize also, because you are a foreigner, sometimes the local wants to take advantage of that.
Okay.
They know that you don't know.
Gotcha.
And some people want to take advantage of that mainly through money.
Okay.
Okay. The exchange rate or overcharging you for a certain product. So sometimes you have to defend what you're wanting to do. But most of the time, it really boils down to when you offend, a simple, quick apology can do that. Sometimes the language they may not understand, but everybody understands head gestures. They understand you bowing down.
Certainly.
Or you putting your hand over your chest, saying I'm sorry. They understand that.
Okay.
So things like that can quickly bring the tension down.
But you never have to find yourself in a position where the only way that an apology would be accepted is by transacting some sort of business, like paying money or...
Almost always.
So apologies can be purchased.
Yes.
Well, guys, we are talking to Dr. Raymond Youngblood, who is the CEO of a company called Consor Inc. And we're going to take a short break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some other things that he has had to deal with internationally and how you can best fit yourself so that you don't run into these types of problems. You're listening to Small Business Talk. I'm your host, John Cruz, and this is Business 1110 AM KTEK, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Now now, the host of Small Business Talk, John Cruz.
Okay, welcome back to the show. And if you're just joining in, we're talking to Dr. Raymond Youngblood, who is the CEO of Consor International. And Consor is an international gold mining operation. And what we're talking about are things that you need to be aware of if you're looking to take your business to the next level and operate on a global platform, and how you do that operating outside the United States. Now, Dr. Youngblood, I had a friend once who was selling vehicles, used vehicles, down in, I don't want to say it was Panama. Let's forget what country it was.
Okay.
But he said that he was sending these cars down there and the money was never showing up. He thought he had a great arrangement because his wife was from down there. I think he sent maybe 20 or 30 vehicles and went down there to check on things. And even one of the police agents that was hired to help him figure out what was going on was in one of the cars that he had sent down there. So I'm wondering then, what types of stories do you have that you can speak to that in terms of you have to be very careful who you trust in these other countries?
Okay. We decided one time that we were going to sell used tires.
Okay.
All right. So sure enough, we go and we find a buku load of used tires, which was very good for South African market. Let's say 800,000 tires. By the time that ship made it to its destination, maybe 400,000 tires. So even along the way, containers would be missing. If you don't do things like take out the insurance and all these, you have to remember, basically your friend was scammed, okay? And the easiest lure to get scammed is to have somebody you trust know the place, but this is what the issue is. They have to be there. Somebody have to be on the other end to accept.
To receive,
always, okay? And it has to be someone that understands the business that you're wanting to do, because you have to also remember in the mind of the local that it may be customary to give somebody, if you have 5 cars, to give one to a shipping agent or to the police officer or to a sergeant or whatever. That's customary. For us, we call it bribery. We call it corruption, extortion. We call it all these things, but in these countries, this is common practice.
And but if you're operating on skinny margins, I mean that could really ruin your international efforts.
What I would have suggested he do was not only put someone there, but go and buy 2 or 3 very cheap cars and send them just for that purpose. Send them just for that purpose to give as a gift to the police officer to make sure that he doesn't touch your high-end vehicles. You either pay him the money to guard your cars or give him a car. So he took a car anyway. Either way,
you're going to pay something.
Yes, and I love our fellow Americans and people from the UK who say, "Oh, I wouldn't do this," and oh my goodness, they get ate the quickest. Okay, and in Africa they have this term. They say the people will eat your money. All right. So if there's certain things that you will not do or not willing to do, you get your money eaten. Period.
And if you don't comply, then you just don't do business the way that you could do business.
Right.
Wow.
It just won't happen. It just won't happen in the way that you want it to.
Now, Consor is as I said before, an international company, and I'm sure you're like any other company, although you may make millions of dollars. I'm not going to ask you what you earn, but you still have to manage your expenses. So what are some of the ways that you're able to save money running an operation as large as Consor International?
Okay. One of the first things that we do is, for example, when it comes to the mining, you have to recognize who your players are. It's just like a sports team. When I was in college, I played basketball, and one of the things I can remember one time, coach yelling at me for passing the ball to a certain player. And I said, well, coach, he was open. And coach said, yeah, but that's not the guy you give the ball to in that situation.
Gotcha.
All right? So that's the same thing with your business. You have to recognize who your people are, whether they are fit for the toughness that's about to take place, because you have to be also physically tough to go into these places. I'll give you an example. If you're going to the bush in Liberia, there's a certain group of guys you have to send to the bush in Liberia, because the bush or the jungle in Liberia is jungle. Okay, so if you're sending your air conditioning GOs there, your work probably won't get done. So you have to recognize
because of the level of discomfort.
Right. Just the mosquitoes alone can be discouraging. Just
Wow.
the mosquitoes by themselves is enough, not including the heat. It never stops raining. The noises you hear throughout the night. So,
And the list goes on.
and it goes on.
Well, guys, we're going to take a short break. We're talking to Dr. Raymond Youngblood, who is the CEO of Consor International. And let's go to break, and then when we come back, we're going to let you finish giving us some of the things that you're dealing with over there. You're listening to John Cruz, and this is Small Business Talk, and we're on Business, 1110 a.m., KTEK. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Small Business Talk on Business 1110 KTEK with John Cruz.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the show, and we're talking to Dr. Raymond Youngblood, who is the CEO of Consor International, which is an international gold mining corporation. And we're talking a little bit about the challenges that any company would be faced with in doing business in, and I don't want to say a third world nation because that term is sort of passé at this point, but we'll say emerging market nations. Mm-hmm. And right now, Consor has interests in Ghana, Liberia, Sudan, Colombia, Uganda, the United States, and Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. So now, let's switch things a little bit. And when we talk about companies like UPS, companies like FedEx, mm-hmm. we consider them to be masters at delivery, masters at shipping. But really what they are masters of logistics. Mm-hmm. They know better than most companies the cheapest, fastest, and most insurable way to have items delivered anywhere on the planet. So when I think about what you do at Consor, I think about if you're going to go to another country, maybe the best thing to do is to hire a consultant of some sort that can help you through that process. Now, did you do that when you guys were starting up at Consor?
I wasn't that smart, John. I wish I would have. I was lucky to have a lot of my friends from college that were from some of these places.
Okay.
So they were basically my consultants. And they were also my cultural consultants. Okay, to help me through a lot of these processes. And some of my friends are now in very high places in ministries and, as ministers or vice presidents and all these kinds of things. So it has been a very blessing for me that I made friends with them before when we were all nobodies. Okay. So some of the things I think that will help the audience, if anybody who's looking to go to a country, first, take a look at the country you're wanting to go into, on the continent you're wanting to go into. You may sell a product that's needed in Colombia and one that's needed in Cote d'Ivoire. Okay. That may be true, but the cultures of those places are totally different, okay? And then there's a big cultural shock to people. If you are a primarily white-owned company and you're going to go to Africa, then you have to primarily deal with black people. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you are a black and want to go to South America, you have to primarily deal with Spanish people. So right. These are things that you have to be prepared for, and a lot of people don't think about it that way.
Certainly.
So simple things like inventory control, having a certain kind of finances, and then know the finances that you have. Know exactly what market you can go into. And then these are some what I call some unforgettable things that people don't think about: the pens, the papers, and paper clips. Okay. Right? They forget it costs money, but they don't think about it. You have to travel there and back. Mm-hmm. You also have to pay a different cost for the food. A lot of time you will go there thinking that you're going to get cheap food, but if you're going to stay in a 5-star hotel, you're going to pay U.S. prices for that 5-star hotel. You're not going to pay the local people price.
Even though you're in an emerging market.
Even though you're in an emerging market. It just doesn't work that way. Okay? So, and then get to know some of the local sayings. It means a lot. For example, bail yourself out. Sort them out. Give me something small. All these things make a very big difference. Bail yourself out is something the police would tell you, meaning that bail yourself out. There, you don't have no bail bondsman. There's no such thing as a bail bondsman. So bail yourself out means come out of your pocket with something to give me some money for tea or for some drinks or something like that. And
so basically, you're bailing yourself out before you even
get arrested.
Yeah, that is a sort of a switch on how we do things here legally.
Okay, and then also understand too that simple things like the food. I give you a quick story. My brother and I had a restaurant in the Western region. All right. And in that Western region, I don't even want to say the country, but in the Western region, we're on our way back to the capital city. We stopped to get something to eat. Seemed like an okay place, and we've eaten at some really horrible places. bring out the chicken and rice, set it down, take the top off. Man, it looked good. So we start eating. About third bite, I see a roach crawling around the ring of my plate.
Wow.
Just making a circle like NASCAR, okay? But when I tell the lady about the problem, I still have to pay for the meal. It's not her fault that the roach was there. A roach is a part of life. It's a part of nature. God gave that roach that. What can she do about that? So you have to understand things like this.
Well, that brings me to my next point. We'll talk about that after we come back from the break. We'll talk a little bit about customer service. And also, too, we want to talk about is how you handle employee theft, because you are dealing in a precious metal. And
Yes.
I am certain that you have to deal with theft. Mm-hmm. And you probably can't do it over there the way that we would do things over here. We're talking to Dr. Raymond Youngblood, who is the CEO of Consor International, and we're going to take a short break. We're going to come right back and ask some more questions about how to do business in other countries. You're listening to John Cruz. This is Small Business Talk, and we're on Business 1110 AM, KTEK. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Small Business Talk on Business 1110 KTEK. Here's your host, John Cruz.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the show, and we appreciate you for sticking in here with us. Now, before we went to break, Dr. Youngblood, we were talking about theft. So what happens when you find someone who is actually stealing gold right out of the ground or right out of the mine? How do you handle that?
We shoot them.
Get out of here.
No, you would like to, but no, you can't do that.
So how do you handle it?
Normally, they're arrested. It's a normal process. They're arrested, okay? But let me speak from the actual. Let me continue to be me. I've been me on every episode,
And
so let me continue to be
that.
me. The boys who work at that site, if they catch another boy stealing the gold, especially the way we treat our employees, they're gonna beat him.
Really?
Yes. They're going to beat him. So it's encouraged. The main people who we have problem with when it comes to theft or bandits that are waiting when we take it out and we have to take it to a secure place. So now the kind of theft that do happen is the boys will do simple things like, of course, stick it in their pocket if they find nuggets, or some would chew it and eat it.
Really?
Yes. And then do number two later to
and they'll
sell
go
it.
through it.
They'll go through it. And even some of the buyers are sitting right there watching them excavate it to wash it and then take it.
Is that right?
Yes, it's gold. Everybody's want it in any form, no matter where it's coming from. They want it. So that normally happens quite a bit. So
now, if that does happen, he's arrested. Naturally, there's no chance of him coming back to the operation.
No.
And you essentially hire someone else and you move on just as you would here.
Wherever, normally in our operation, we have less problems with it than we used to have in the past now. But for every one boy now that loses his job, there's about 150 waiting for that one.
No doubt.
Yes.
No doubt. Now, you gave a short list when we were at the break of things that a person needs to be focused on when doing business in another country. And I want you to read that list. And if we have to go to break in the middle of it, it's fine.
Okay.
But I definitely want you to get started on what you should be looking to do or how you should tread before going in with money.
Okay. The first thing you should do is you should just visit as a tourist. 1 or 2 weeks. Spend some solid time on the ground walking around as a tourist. Get to know the people, the culture. Also, that's probably the hotel you stay in is probably how you're going to meet some of your staff. Okay. Some of the people who's going to guide you around later. You may meet a waiter or the head chef or a manager, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to pay this. I know this guy's only making $400 a month. I'm going to come and offer him $600 or $700 or $1,000 a month to be my guy on the ground here or my lady on the ground here to guide me around.
Okay.
The second time that's your first visit. Then you're not going to do business. You're just
going as a tourist.
You're going as a tourist. You're investigating. You're scouting. The next thing you want to do is you want to go the second round and visit government offices.
Okay.
But you want to stay away from head government officials. Okay. A lot of times, they're the most expensive, all right? Being the most expensive, and then they're also going to send you to somebody downstairs that you should have dealt with in the first place.
Gotcha.
Okay? Then third is become a shopper. The product that you're selling, go and buy that product. Use it, test it, see if it's something that you're wanting to do.
Okay, well, we're going to stop you right there. There's one more step, but we're going to take a short break. You're listening to Small Business Talk. This is John Cruz, and we're on Business 1110 AM KTEK. We'll be right back after this.
You're You're listening to Small Business Talk on Business 1110 KTEK. Now, the host of Small Business Talk, John Cruz.
Okay, welcome back to the show. And before we went to break, we were talking about 4 visits that you must be willing to undertake before you start doing business in any country. And Dr. Raymond Youngblood, you were very close to finishing that up. Why don't you recap the first 3 again?
Okay. Visit just as a tourist. Visit the government offices on your second visit, and then go as a shopper of the product that you're wanting to sell to see if the market has already exists, to see if a superior product may already exist there.
Okay, and that's your 3rd visit.
That's the 3rd. And then the 4th and final one is to go prepared to do business. Go prepared to do business. Go strong, go hard. And then I want to give at least 4 people I think that are going to be very important to your operations long term.
Okay.
1, while you're in your hotels or moving around town, find somebody who can teach you the culture.
Okay.
Then, secondly, find somebody who can either teach you the language or they speak multiple languages in the country that can be your translator, a true translator. What you say, how you say it, they do it.
Okay.
Okay. 3rd is your driver. Don't go over trying to drive yourself. You may have a license, you may know how to drive, but have someone who can navigate, because the main problem is not the driving. It's being stopped by the police and all these things, and then you can't speak the language. You automatically has a dollar sign on your head to pay more money.
Okay.
And then 4th, most important, is your cook. Okay, to have a chef. Your stomach is not prepared for some of these places. So don't be too worried about the food, because they have supermarkets and all the things there, but a cook is very important, and they're going to be familiar with the local dishes, and it's going to be up to you to teach them the dishes that you like. And most of the cooks there,
and to keep a level of hygiene that you're accustomed to here.
Yes, you got to teach them all that, because they leave the head on the fish, and sometimes even the guts inside the fish.
Wow.
So if you're not prepared for that, teaching them how to clean a fish and all these things, and even scrape the scales. These are things that you just don't think about here, but there
it's most imperative that you have these relationships.
If you forget it, it's detrimental.
Well, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is I was talking about UPS, and I was talking about the fact that FedEx are great logistics companies. Mm-hmm. Now, does Consor have any type of consultative arm where it consults companies who are looking to do business in any of these markets that you guys already have a footprint in?
We used to have that, but what I'd be willing to do is just be a good old country boy. You won't buy us a cup of coffee and sit down. We'll be willing to
talk something out. It's Dr. D.R. Raymond Youngblood Jr. is JR, and he has some fantastic information and some nice photos for what he does there. Dr. Youngblood, I want to say thanks again so much for coming back into the show for us.
Thanks, John.
And I'm going to have you back because there's so many topics that we didn't get a chance to discuss that maybe the next time we'll get into those things, because I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to go on a nationwide level. I want to thank you for tuning in to Small Business Talk. I've been your host, John Cruz, and this is where we discuss the topics that inspire entrepreneurs from thought to action. So until tomorrow, be smart, be successful, and above all else, be in action. And I'll see you tomorrow.